Daddy, I've been trying, I just can't catch a break. There's too much in this world that I can't seem to shake. I remember your words, Lord, they bring me the chills. Keep your nose on the grindstone and out of the pills. Welcome to Earth.
True friendship right there. When you are feeling like loneliness is just absolutely insufferable, they walk in, they grab you by the chin, they lift your head up, they lock eyes and they say, not today, we're not gonna have it, you got this. Sometimes you gotta grow up quick. You don't have a certain parent in your life. You gotta grow up quick. You don't have no siblings. You gotta grow up quick. And sometimes you get burnt out when you have to keep growing up quick. But it's that burnout, it's that exhaustion that brings on recovery. So don't despise the hard times. Don't despise the pain. Embrace it. It's here to grow you.
You better wade in that water. Wade. Just watch Harriet. I watched Harriet this summer and I was feeling absolutely invigorated by a lot of the themes in that movie. I really appreciated the pain. I appreciated Cynthia and Vero's acting, as I always do, her voice, and I appreciated the participation of song. That absolutely did it for me. But speaking of song, obviously those weren't my lyrics that I sang in the front of the show. So not trying to take anybody else's credit, because that's definitely Tyler Childers. And I learned about that song from Yellowstone. I'm not gonna lie, I've been watching a show about a bunch of white people living in Montana during this quarantine. But it's just one of those TV shows that just absolutely compels you. Like, it can draw you in. The characters are dynamic, almost predictable in a way, but it's everything you want to see. And that's what did it for me. Like, that's what drew me in. Regardless, I don't have to explain anything. I just like the show. And I love that song. That's one of them songs that, like, that's a quarantine song. Like, that's a song that's going to get you out and about because somebody actually related with you. And I could feel the pain in his voice. So I mimic that all day. That hook, everything, the melody, can't get it out of my head a lot of the time. So why not share that with you all? In any case, thank you so much for joining me. It's another episode of The Rhetorical Sake. And, won't stop, don't stop. But sometimes we do stop, and that's all right. Just start it up again. I am having an interesting time recording in a new location that is not necessarily all mine. So bear with me as I get adjusted, but this is also like kind of what I wanted to talk about today, is this dynamic of what most of us are going through in quarantine and lockdown, is being the person that you are in front of certain people, because certain people deserve a different presence. Not deserve, but it's expected, or it's just how life works sometimes with human interaction. So I'm not going to act like I'm at home when I'm at work, and I'm not going to act like I'm at work when I'm at home. However, that has all been switched around. And so I want to meet my listeners and anyone that cares on the level playing field of being yourself, not getting lost in what you don't have or where you haven't been, but also honing in on those connections that you have made in your life. And I've made many connections in my life, and as most people would have, or hopefully should have, I got a whole script, so I'm just going to stick to that. But we will dive more into the production and maintaining a small business and being your business in the midst of a world of crisis and trying to maintain a good attitude. That's challenging, and that has been my challenge. I think that's been very evident. I have not been on here posting episodes for the last 6 months that we have been locked down, told to wear masks, told to separate ourselves. I haven't been doing any of that. Being creative, producing the show. I mean, I'm constantly producing the show, but I mean like physically, because I didn't have the means, because I actually I got separated from the machine, the studio. And if you listened last season, you would know like my life, the floor fell out month before this whole pandemic thing hit. A month before there were riots in the streets, race wars. A month before, I've had many friends. No, I mean, I've had many, many friends, but there's probably, I could count on my hand, people that actually contact me. But don't get me wrong, I don't reach out. I have not reached out because, like many of us, mental illness, anxiety, depression, PTSD, things like that. And I'm going to have a whole episode about the genres of PTSD. And like race, some of them are glorified, whereas others are, their stories suppressed. And just because you did not serve in the military does not mean you don't have PTSD from traumatic events. And anyway, it could put you on a tailspin. So by no means am I a doctor yet. I'm a Bachelor of Arts. I wanted to be a Bachelor of Science because I did start out trying to go to, not trying, I was going to like pre-med, but the best pre-med Pepperdine offered at the time was sports medicine, and that ain't pre-med. And that's what I learned. Like, there's fast-tracked ways. There's these programs, and these schools capitalize on them. And you see people like Lori Loughlin going to jail, Felicity Huffman, I love her. William H. Macy, that's his wife. And she served her time. She cranked it out, whatever. For me, as much as I'm a fan, I get where the courts are coming from, because it's like, how does it get to a point where like college, paying somebody tuition, giving a school a donation lands you in prison? Well, it's because of the opportunity costs. It's all about opportunity costs. And the opportunity costs the school took on me, people like that did not pay for. It's people that were genuinely endowed and had every means and every right to donate, because there was no incentive. There was no return on that investment other than the good of humankind, not just the good of their child. So when I'm in class and I get a water polo player's paper to grade, and he can't even complete sentences, he's clearly just written this right before class, like maybe stayed up all night, whatever. And I have to work my ass off for weeks just to get a B on this draft. And this dude gets an A because he just tried. I see the discrepancy. I see the problem. And I'm not ashamed of seeing that. That's where the anger comes from. That's why people are going to protest. People rioting, that ain't what I'm about. I'm all about MLK, Frederick Douglass, peaceful until the nonviolent, even if you get smacked in the face, Freedom Riders, Little Rock 9. I've met Mr. Green, a member of that clan, like Black Clan of students that integrated the schools in Little Rock. So there's no way there's any justification for violence, and there never will be. It kind of turns the debate into a lottery. But anyway, I had a buddy that did a podcast recently, and he is very socially relevant in many capacities because of his career. Yes, I am vaping. So the fact that he did a podcast where he wasn't DJing was a pretty big deal. And when he told me that I needed to listen to this episode of a podcast he did, I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Kind of put it, I was like, I need a good time to listen to it. Because at the time, I was celebrating my 31st birthday, which is like a month and a half ago. So a month and a week ago, a month ago. So he does the podcast and he describes our relationship, and this is a relationship of which I am writing a book about because it has grown and flourished many times over. However, his perception of it is definitely different than mine. And it's not however, it's although or I don't know. But one thing I learned a couple of years ago is that there is what I think happened, there's what you think happened, and there's what actually happened. And we may never know what actually happened, but we got our two sides and we can merge. But I will say, I told him that was the sweetest, kindest, best birthday gift. I mean, I've been given a lot of gifts. It was one of the best. I'm not going to say it was the best, but it was one of the best. It was one of the most sincere. And for him to have done that, it let me know that I'm not alone in how I feel about people that have interacted with me in my life. If you're like me, you're an owner of a small business. Your podcast, whether you know it or not, is actually a small business. And thankfully, you guys have helped me through one of the worst times in this planet's history. However, that doesn't mean that it's over. That doesn't mean that we're done. I want to keep bringing you content, and I'm going to keep bringing you content. I'm going to bring more and more. However, we have something to do, and we need financing. We need sponsors that are actually going to pay the fee to be marketed on this show. I have a lot of friends that I'm going to shout out. I have a lot of businesses I'm going to shout out. And it's not necessarily because they're sponsoring the podcast. They, like me, need a plug. So I'm going to do it. In any case, whether I do or I don't in the meantime, you can support me at patreon.com/erhunter. But I love spreading whatever parcel or message I'm supposed to give. So go ahead and check out my book, God Sent Dog. It's available on Amazon and Kindle, as well as Chasing God Alcoholically. Those are both available on Amazon and Kindle. I'm stoked. I'm glad you're here. Let's let's keep this up. And here we go. So I was pretty much head over heels for this guy in Italy. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Head over heels. It was the first time that I actually like fell in love, like to the point where I was like sick, like disgusted with myself. And thus there is a book in the works about all this. And this gentleman knows it. He knows. And it's, you know, it's not me, it's you type thing. No, it's not you, it's me type thing. And I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of it at all. And we're still good friends to this day. So to hear his side of when we first met was absolutely invigorating. It gave me a profound sense of I matter. And I think that's one of the best things you can get on your birthday or your birthday weekend or when you're celebrating. And so I'm sitting in this motel room in Savannah, Georgia, and listening to this, and I just burst out crying because it was beautiful. I didn't know anybody ever saw me. Like you see me. You have no obligation. You're not family. We have no history together, but you saw me for who I was. And to hear that back is priceless. It's absolutely priceless. I think he kind of tripped up in describing me, or maybe what he thought was me, because I know English is his second language, or his third, or his fourth, or his fifth, because he knows like 7 different languages. But, you know, he called me poor, and yes, out of all the kids that were there, I was definitely teetering on the line of middle class with a bunch of high class people. And if you want to say high class, not like they're wearing tuxedos all the time, but sustainable. They come from money, they have money, they're not worried about money. And that was one of the first things I did when I got to Italy and introduced myself. They asked us to draw a coat of arms, and I drew in one corner of this shield a bag of money on fire. And I do not advocate for anyone burning money. That is why it was art, and so is this. But at the time, I felt as if money was very divisive. I saw it in such a sinister way. I saw it as an oppressor. And yet, the only oppressor was really just my mind, my mentality, my perspective. Because most of the people that I lived with and went to college with had nothing to do with how they got there, had nothing to do with their financial being. So who am I to judge them? They got dealt the cards they were handed, and they played them. And they played them well. They obliged, they played by the rules, they never cheated. Who knows? Maybe they did. You know what I'm saying? So then you get caught when you're cheating. In any case, that song, Keep Your Nose to the Grindstone, because I had worked so hard to get to where I didn't even know I should be. I had a lot of survivor's remorse when I got to college. I felt like I left everything that I loved. I felt like I abandoned the ones that actually raised me. So I'm not ashamed of my decisions in my 20s. I'm grateful for them. I went to Italy when I turned 20. So it was like I turned 21 a year early. I went to Europe, and I lived there for 11 months. Almost a year, to the point where I could walk down the street and people would just be hollering at me. They'd be like, "Yo, Eddie, oh, Eddie." And at one point, I remember one night, the whole street was just bustling with people that I knew, and they were like, "Yo, what up?" driving in a car, somebody walking towards me on the sidewalk, the bouncer at the club across the street. Like, it was surreal. I've had a great ride. And unfortunately, like I said, I'm going to do a whole PTSD episode because this did not give me PTSD. It wasn't traumatic. It was influential. And so I think that there is post-influential stress. I don't think it's a disorder. I think it's just an understanding. But when you're a minority on top of another minority, and you're constantly getting bamboozled, once you've had that influence, you're constantly getting set back. You're supposed to compromise, and yet you've had more world experience than many of the people that you're making money for. So my frustration in this coronavirus and this shutdown and this quarantine, I think the girl said it best in a TV show on HBO, I May Destroy You. And they describe what this PTSD, this trauma can do, and it's pretty much like a laptop. Like she was describing her friend, and she was saying, my friend she's in safe mode. And you know when your laptop goes into safe mode because it's experienced too much trauma. And sometimes I think we as humans, definitely, like it was so spot on. It's not about what I think. That got shown to me. That was so true because I didn't know that was where I was at. You just go into safe mode. It's not about anybody else. It's a matter of preserving whatever battery life, whatever memory, whatever RAM, whatever drive function you have left. And maybe getting back to normal. But you cannot keep hurting and traumatizing a unit without it reacting. And so I'm not ashamed of my reaction to lockdown and quarantine and pandemic. I am appalled at the lack of communication. I'm appalled at the divisiveness. I am appalled at the politicizing of a health issue. And so it brings into light so many different dynamics, and you find the people that you thought were closest to you not there. And I have abandonment issues, and that's been a big thing for me because I've traveled the world. I was on flights to Italy when I was a senior in high school for spring break, and I'm black, and I have green eyes. Do you know how rare my life is? And you don't. Like, you won't know unless you're me. And to come home from the airport, and even though this beautiful, grand life, to have no one there at the airport. And this is why rich people still feel poor. This is why people that are famous still feel empty. This is it. You can have fame, you can have money, you can have the world travels and the experience, but if you're missing that same thing you've always missed, if you're still suffering from the same mental issues you've always suffered from, nothing is going to fill that except for a solution that properly addresses it. And so as a young person, you run around and you try to fill these voids with a lot of experience. And sometimes it kind of backfired. It definitely backfired on me because I just got left with, well, damn, I was doing that last year. I used to travel around Italy. I used to go to Fiji. I used to do mission trips. I used to rebuild convents. Like, stuff nobody ever asks you about. And you know you're this good person, and people keep telling you you're this good person. It's tough when you come home and you're in, baggage claim, and you're just there, and all your friends are like hugging their parents and stuff. It weighs on you. And so when I think back to like my first anxiety attack, that happened, I thought it happened senior year, but I'm pretty sure, no, my first real anxiety attack happened my eighth grade, near the SATs. Like, I was supposed to be home studying, and I just broke down. And it was physical. It was a physical breakdown. It's not like I was trying to move my arms. It's not like I was trying to shake and convulse my body. And so, I don't know if I put on a front or if I just dealt with it or if I was okay and maybe things got worse later. I have no idea. But what I do know, I made it out. I kept on it passed, but that's not necessarily like we got to the causes and conditions. And I'm not trying to sound all AA, anything like that. I'm trying to sound like for real. I mean, there's some good things in that book. There's some great things in Alcoholics Anonymous book. You just buy that little blue book, it'll explode your mind. And it's a great practice. I think it's a beautiful practice. Because it serves all of humanity, even if you're not an alcoholic. And nowhere in that book does it ever suggest you not to drink. It just shares their experience. So when people pass their judgment on me about where I am and how I've endured this year, or how could I even present myself, believe me, I've already passed that judgment 20, 40 times, 1,000 times through before you ever thought of me. Elio, thank you for your podcast that you did. So I'm going to say that over the airways. I left Italy brokenhearted. And I am so lucky that I actually did have family that picked me up from the airport when I arrived at LAX on July 4th, 2011. I flew in after living 11 months in Italy to LAX, connecting flight in, I think it was Zurich. And my grandmother and my aunt picked me up from the airport. And that's one of the only times I have ever had a ride home from the airport. And, I mean, as a young adult, as a college student, just as someone with their own autonomy. As a kid, I mean, I've been flying in airplanes since I was 3. And the older I get, the more nervous I get about everything. Roller coasters, airplanes. So my risk-taking, I've noticed, has gone down significantly. And I used to be a huge adrenaline junkie. Season passes to amusement parks, King's Dominion, VA, y'all know what it is. And I just digressed. I just thought that came with age, but surfing definitely made me realize that I have calmed down maybe way too much. Because there are many fears when I walk out the door, because you don't want bad things to happen, but sometimes they do. Sometimes a homeless person might just attack you because you don't respond to them the way that they do, and they're black and you're black, and you end up calling the cops, and you have to plead with the cops not to take them to jail, but to take them to the hospital. It makes you sometimes not want to go outside. But I'm grateful for the space I've been given. I'm grateful for the moment I was given in Italy, and as heartbroken as I was to leave one of the best friends I ever met, and a man who has followed his passions, and I can't judge his ways. I can't blame him. And yeah, he might have called me poor on a podcast, but I would rather be called poor than rich. What is the Bible says, like a rich man, it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than it is for a camel to get through the needle's eye. A lot of people don't know what that means. The needle's eye. You Game of Thrones fans, my God, boys. The needle's eye is a hole in the wall of a town, a Bastille, a castle, and at night, rather than letting down the main gate, they would call the side door the needle's eye. And so if a traveler came on the camel, it's rather difficult, and you must be in demand, and you must be trying to get here under, some secrecy. That camel would have to crawl through that small little door in the side of the wall. That's the needle's eye. It's not anything to do with a thimble or, Monopoly pieces or your grandmother's sewing kit. And shout out to my grandmother, who's just a triple OG. Shout out to my great aunt. Man, I'm grateful to have family, because there's people that don't. But dude, when COVID, when you let yourself down, and you don't reach your objective, you don't reach your objectives, and then you feel people's eyes on you, your family, the people you told that you were going to do this, and you didn't tell a lot of people. You didn't post on Facebook, you didn't post on Instagram, but you told some people. You were doing good in 2019. 2019 was cool, but 2020 walked in. God damn. Fuck me up. Lord Jesus. Excuse my language, y'all. I'm trying. In any case, it's just so funny. I'm still working on this book about me and my buddy's story in Italy. And I'm still working on this third book that is almost done, actually, but it is just the most cathartic thing, and I don't kind of want to let myself have it. But it's not that I need it, it is that the world needs it, and I think the world needs it right now. And so that's the pressure. Even though it might take a year, it might take a couple of years, it might take a couple of months, who knows, to get it published and out to press, marketing, all this stuff. But it is so nice to have a body of work, and I know that it took me 8 years to write scripts that got me through the doors of Hollywood. So why would I tease myself or downgrade myself and try to compare myself to someone like Jordan Peele or J.J. Abrams and stuff like that, or Steven Spielberg, and look up their biographies and be like, oh man, look at where they were. And then you have people coming back in your life during this season of COVID, the pandemic, people that really care about you. Those are the ones that are texting you, reaching out and wondering what you're all about. They are wondering, when are you going to be back in the entertainment field? And I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I know I am in a field of my passion, because entertainment was fine. It catered. It kind of, I don't know how to say it, sufficed. But that's not to say that that is who exactly I was supposed to be. Because... Well, I'm not going to talk about because. You got to read the book. In any case, I'm grateful because there are so many degrees of separation and then so many actualizations. And so when I was in Atlanta and I'm watching Fox News and I'm seeing these protests and I am near them, and I'm participating in them momentarily. The girl on Fox News I've gone to college with, the person on this new television show I went to college with, we had acquaintances, we shared drinks, we've interacted, and so you feel connected in a different way. And so I'm trying to understand the anger and the resentment, and it's not that I don't get it, but I've felt that anger and resentment just from being who I am as a light-skinned person that has been raised in a what you would call white way. However, it was not a white way. It looked white. Best believe my family is BLACK and proud of it. But my grandfather, he ain't so dark. And when you're a kid like me, you do speech competitions, you're class president, you're the prom king, and then you meet Oprah, and everyone recognizes you as that guy. And there's a huge expectation. There's a huge aura. Expectation is just the epitome of the pressure. And then you get older, and because I succeeded in that, I delivered on it. I went to the college of my dreams. I've worked in films and TV, and even though it may not have been very powerful, but it was relevant. That's priceless. So I have grown up with the survivor's guilt, wondering why me? A lot of times, rather than, what's the next? And the next is so big right now. So it can be very intimidating when everything is so small. Everything seems so small right now. Interactions, going out, gains, losses. Everyone's so thirsty, so hungry. It's very cutthroat in the business world. It can be intimidating. And I'm not going to stand here and say, you got this, you just got to keep pressing hard to know. It might be out of your control sometimes. You do got this, but sometimes God or whatever, the universe has it too. So where are we at? Are we playing tug of war, or are we in the same line? Don't discount controversy. And I'm saying that to myself as much as I'm saying it to anybody else listening. So when I'm sitting at home and I'm watching the news and or playing a video game, and someone I used to date, or someone I admired, or someone I was Facebook, girlfriend, boyfriends with, comes on the video game as the main host, and I'm looking at myself, 31 years old, gray hair, balding, fat, overweight, scared. It's so easy to compare myself to that. But the degree of separation is 0. There's no one else between me and that person I'm comparing myself to. Now, if I go to someone like Oprah, who I met in high school, and then again when I was 7 years later working in New York City as a caterer, I don't know if it's by happenstance. I don't think happenstance is coincidence. So, in the date lined up, that gap being bridged, the degrees of separation. As much as I've gone through, it was those moments that taught me I matter, that my life actually has a purpose, and that I was so fortunate to be shown that, not by anyone, just by mere coincidence, by everything the stars aligning. That's what I'm talking about. And that's why I do this. Y'all tell me keep going. The friends that I've spoken to this year, each one of them, they say, you keep writing, you keep podcasting, you keep doing what you're doing, and it feels so weird. It feels very awkward. I wouldn't say it's fun, but I know it's me, because I do wrestle at night with, did I sound stupid? Did I put out too much? Did I talk too much? Am I going to get, canceled? And at this point in the world, in this timeline, I don't give a damn. That is what got me to where I met Oprah, and that is what got me to why I want to dedicate this episode to Chadwick Boseman, because he was the archetype hero of every black man. And I am a black man, as light as my skin may be, and as green as or blue or gray or hazel as my eyes might be. Chadwick, we had a degree of separation, one. And I'm not going to embellish that right now. But I will say, he knew of me at one point, and he teased a joke. Even though he didn't know me, he didn't meet me in person, but because of who I was and where I was at, he let the other person know, like, I might have to check this guy out because he's close to us now. And I always I was in a season of my life where I probably didn't really recognize how pivotal that was, and that was years before Endgame, so released. So that means they were probably filming it, or he knew who he was. That's the thing about acting, is like you kind of know. You may not know the success of a movie, but your prominence, your featuring in a film, it comes out months, years later after it's filmed. I love the industry because of that, because I don't think I have the patience or the discipline to reserve what is on my chest, what's on my heart. This is kind of a grab bag episode, but I definitely just want to dedicate it to Chadwick, the whole season actually, to him, and John Lewis, who let us know that voting is the most powerful nonviolent weapon we could wield. And the Notorious RBG, rest in peace, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Thank you all for being titans in the race for those of us that have been marginalized. And I'm not trying to cry victim. I'm calling it as it is, because this information is pivotal right now, and our silence simply won't protect us.
Your silence will not protect you. Register to vote, and let's vote this November.
Welcome to Earth.
I want to thank y'all for another good one. Thank you for joining us on the Rhetorical Sake. I'm your host, E.R. Hunter, aka Earth. Shout out to Nightmare Athletic Apparel. Shout out to Stoked on Recovery in Southern California. Shout out to Best Friends Animal Society of Los Angeles. Shout out to my baby Irie, Lil Romeo, 2 pups here with me, and shout out to you, most importantly. In any case, my website's going to be back up and running, erhunter.live. Go ahead and check out God Sent Dog and Chasing God Alcoholically, both of my literary works available at Amazon.com. They're also available on Kindle. You can read them on your phone, and they're not very long at all. In any case, I'm really happy to be back. Bear with us as production's coming together once again, but thank you so much for even any consideration. I love y'all. Be easy and trust whatever God you believe in. Well, yes. I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to do spiritually. Just follow your gut. Bye.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.